Welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. My name is Audrey Monkey, and I am your host. I love to write, research, and talk with podcast guests about summer camp, parenting, and happiness. In episode 9 of the podcast, I'm talking with Daniella Garran, who calls herself a camp cultist, having been affiliated with Cape Cod Sea Camp since 1984. Currently, Daniella serves as assistant director at Cape Cod Sea Camps, where she oversees camper scheduling for 400 campers. She's also one of 2 directors who lead their camp's teen leadership program. Daniella is a middle school teacher. She teaches 7th grade ancient civilizations at Cape Cod Lighthouse Charter School, where she's been on the faculty since 2003. She's participated in archaeological digs in Bulgaria and England and travels extensively through Europe with her students each spring. Originally from Baltimore, Maryland, Daniella received her BA from Connecticut College in 1994 with a double major in history and art history and an MA in education and museum studies from Tufts University. Daniella is the author of 2 books, Hello Mother, Hello Father, Celebrating Summer Camp, and A History of Collegiate Rowing in America. I hope you enjoy my interview with Daniella. Hi, Daniella. It's Audrey.
Hi, Audrey. How are you?
Good. It's so great to talk to you. I know you're a fellow camp lover like I am.
Absolutely. I'm a cultist.
So tell us, just tell everyone a little bit about you, like what you do at camp and what you do the rest of the year and everything.
Sure. So I started going to sleepaway camp when I was 9 years old. I grew up in Baltimore, and it was the thing to do. Nobody stayed in Baltimore for the summer. So I started at Camp Chinqueca in Litchfield, Connecticut for 2 summers. And then since I went to all-girls school, I decided that all-girls camp was a little excessive. So my very best friend said, oh, you should come to my camp. And her camp turned out to be Cape Cod Sea Camp. Well, that was 1984. And I have been there ever since. And I grew up at camp. I've had virtually every job one could possibly have there. I met my husband there. We got married at camp. We were married by one of the directors of the camp. Had our wedding on the field. I mean, it was crazy. So I truly am a camp cultist, and my 3-year-old is going to be starting in the day camp this summer. We're going to try a week and see how she does, but it is completely, I mean, everything good in my life is because of camp, and I'm a 7th grade ancient civilizations teacher during the off season, as I like to call it. And so that is my other, when I grow up, I'm going to be an archaeologist, or possibly a travel writer, but everything's got to make room for camp. So, so that's how I got where I am. And currently I serve as an assistant director at Cape Cod Sea Camps, and I'm solely responsible for scheduling 400 camper activities, or activities for 400 campers, I should say. And then I'm also one of the assistant directors of the teen leadership program, which is a very exciting honor because I graduated from that program, and it was so pivotal in my younger years.
That's amazing. Well, it's funny because the way we connected this week, I'll just tell listeners, is because I put a post up about why I think being a camp counselor is the best job. Really, it's the best job, but for sure the best summer job that college students can have. And a lot of college kids feel pressure from their parents and their career centers to get, an internship with some kind of company that they might want to work for after college. And you were one of the first people who completed the surveys. And I just want you to share a little bit about, you already kind of shared about how much camp has impacted you, but specifically your years working on staff as a camp counselor. What do you think are some of the skills that you learned through that you're still using today, like in your teaching and parenting and everything?
Yeah, so, I would have to back up and really say I'm an only child, full disclosure, and I would say that camp is really where I learned how to share, and I think that is extremely important. And this is just a silly example, but in my classroom, I have a 7th grade homeroom. And if any of your listeners have 7th graders, well, they'll know that, they're not the neatest, most organized bunch. And I just always say, I keep my area of the classroom clean and organized. We're all sharing this space together, and, we need to be respectful of that. And so just little things like that, I think, make a big difference. But I think one of the things that I found really interesting early on in my camp counseling career was this sort of notion of that invisible backpack that people still talk about, just all the things that kids come with that, they're bringing their fans and their shorts and their bathing suits and their sunblock. And, but the invisible backpack is what they're carrying around with them all day, every day. And that could be parents going through a divorce, a grandmother having chemotherapy, or, they were very nervous to come to camp. They didn't want to come to camp. It could be really anything. It could be having a different ethnicity or race than the majority of the rest of the campers. And so I think that that was a really interesting concept to me, and I keep that in mind. And in fact, we just had a class meeting last week where we were talking to students about this very thing, that you never know what someone else is dealing with, and that, it's just as easy to be nice as it is to be mean. And, we were having a little rash of 7th grade, mean girl stuff going on. And I spoke to them about that, and I said, and the same thing goes for the adults. You guys have no idea what we're bringing in with us every day, and you're not supposed to. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, as a counselor, just that concept of remembering that everybody has their invisible backpack with them, and maybe they're having a bad day because they got a letter from home, touching on one of those topics. That can be very difficult. It can really put somebody off for the day, and being sensitive to that. So that's one sort of thing. I think another thing, I'm just sort of, as things are popping into my head, I think there's nothing more significant than the responsibility of transporting campers in either a van or a motorboat or, whatever it is. And I can remember thinking when I turned 21, I was so excited. Oh, I get to drive the camp van. Oh, yeah, let's turn up the music. And as I've gotten older, I think to myself, oh, my gosh, I have 11 other people's children in this van. We're not playing the music. Stop talking. It's really, I think that the older I get, I'm, especially now as a parent, I'm so much more cognizant of that huge responsibility that it's all great fun to be driving kids in motorboats out. We are located on Cape Cod Bay, so we're transporting campers in motorboats and just sort of thinking how much fun that is. But oh my gosh, when you start to think about the huge responsibility that you have, the safety of someone else's child is really significant. And one of the things that we've been doing during our staff orientation for a number of years is having a parent panel. And we have parents of current campers come and speak to the staff. And of course, we pick people who are going to have a variety of perspectives. Someone whose camper is extremely shy, someone whose camper is an athlete, someone who, and one of my favorite speakers happens to be a good friend of mine, and she has 2 grown sons, but they grew up at camp, and one is this amazingly gifted athlete, and the other is an amazingly gifted actor. And she said, camp allowed them both to excel at their passions. And so really, again, like recognizing all the different types of people that you're going to interact with and really emphasizing that with the staff too, I think is important. So hopefully that answered your question. I was a little all over the place.
No, it was great. I actually, when you were talking, I was thinking, yes, like when you're thinking about the huge responsibility of being a counselor. And sometimes people from the outside just think, oh, they're just like having fun and singing songs and goofing around with these kids.
Exactly.
But they all take the responsibility very seriously. And of course, we train them to do so. And they are learning the skills. Like, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I look at for training counselors is in the leadership realm and communication skills. And it's like all those things that they're practicing while they're leading their kids are so useful in so many other areas later in life, whether they're running a department in a company or their family or a teaching. Oh my
Absolutely.
gosh. So many of our former counselors who are now teachers share with me the like team building they do in their classes and all the stuff they do to bring that connection piece into school. I'm sure you're doing that. Do you bring a lot of your camp stuff into school?
Oh yeah, and I kind of joke that I think I have a very different persona in the classroom. I like to be very hard nosed and very tough, and I have very high expectations, and so I tell the kids I work really hard to cultivate this, so don't blow it for me. And at camp, I still think I take it very, very seriously, but it's almost a different personality. But when we have field trips, my school does, quite a few overnight field trips. I find that I am in full camp counselor mode. We were on a whale watch a couple of years ago with the whole 7th grade, and it was extremely choppy. And we had a dozen students vomiting. It was horrible. And then I was one-on-one with a camper who has an anxiety disorder having a massive panic attack. And I actually had other teachers come up to me after the day was over and said, I have no idea how you just did what you did for 3 hours. And I said, I was just being a camp counselor. And they said, but how did you know what to do? And I said, years and years of practice. So, I find that in situations like that, I tend to be much better prepared than a lot of my colleagues. And that, being in not necessarily an emergency, thank goodness, but in a situation that's high stress that, if you did your student teaching, you went to graduate school, wonderful. But what are you going to do when you have a physically ill camper who is far away from their parent? They don't know how to troubleshoot that. So, that's just an example that hopefully nobody has in their workplace on a daily, basis. But certainly, things like that for anybody in the education field, are very real.
Yes, definitely. I think actually, that whole concept of being able to just kind of think on your feet, figure out how to deal with different situations that pop up, that does happen everywhere.
Absolutely. I have plan A, plan B, plan C, all the way down to, plan Q in class. And, it's like, I'm ready. If the technology goes out or, we lose power, I'm ready. And I see other people scrambling. And as a camp counselor, you always have to have a variety of things in your back pocket ready to go. And I always do. And so my one of my colleagues who's in her second year of teaching and is wonderful and incredibly organized and really on the ball just said to me, wow, how I'm so jealous that you can just do those things. And I say, well, I have been teaching the same thing for 14 years. So that makes it easy on the one hand, but on the other hand, I just have a bag of tricks when it comes to working with kids, and not to say, I learn from staff every year. We had I was incredibly lucky to work with a woman who was just starting her teaching career, and she, as far as I'm concerned, she walks on water, and those kids, I mean, I learned so much from watching her interactions with kids. And I think that's another thing that's so amazing about camp is, I'm 44 years old and I'm learning from 25-year-olds, and even younger, of course. We all learn from our campers, but how incredible that they have a different perspective. Whereas in the workplace, somebody who's seen as extremely capable and competent at a young age might be viewed as a threat. I think it's a gift that I get, a chance to work with people who have different backgrounds and different perspectives, and how incredible that I'm able to, when I travel overseas every spring with my students, I usually am in a country where I know somebody from camp and can meet them for coffee, and how incredible the opportunities that we're afforded, and isn't being a professional all about networking and making connections.
Oh my gosh.
And it all starts at camp.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You've covered so many of the benefits. Now, here's a question for you. When you were interviewing for teaching jobs, did your camp role come up at all? And how did principals, what did they think of that when you mentioned your involvement with camp and all that you'd learned there?
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky because I teach on Cape Cod, where Cape Cod Sea Camps obviously is located. And so the Cape knows Cape Cod Sea Camps very, very well, and it has, an excellent reputation. And ironically, my school does an overnight there every fall, which to me is like sacrilege. It completely freaks me out, because I don't like when the worlds collide like that. But they knew, and they knew the camp's reputation. But it was really when they kind of asked me about it, and I started to tell them what I do there, scheduling 400 campers every week, and dealing with parents on a daily basis, and helping to oversee a teen leadership of 160 teenagers. That is not much smaller than the entire population of the middle school where I teach.
Right.
And they thought, okay, well, you can handle that number of, students, no problem. You can handle their parents. And I find, the whole, and of course it's a very different clientele, at the camp than it is with, the students I teach with at school. But I think the first thing they saw was energy and enthusiasm, which you've got to have in spades if you're going to be at camp. I think they saw organization, which if you're going to be in charge of scheduling for 400 campers, you have to have. I think they saw my ability to work as part of a team and collaborate with peers and wear a lot of different hats. And basically, we all know at camp, nobody ever says no when they're asked to do something. We just say, yep, add it to the plate. Okay. And so I think, that I've maintained, all of that, which I think I highlighted when I interviewed for this job so long ago. And, they know that June 1st rolls around and I've sort of checked out mentally, and they say, oh, yes, we know you're going into the bubble soon. But I think that they look at those skills as, at least in the education field, if you can handle working at a summer camp where you are basically never, even when you're off, you're coming back and you're going to sleep in the cabin with campers, you're really never off. You might get woken up in the middle of the night to take someone to the health center. Somebody could be homesick. You're really never off. And I think that is very much the case at my school as well. You can't ever turn it off.
Right. Wow. That is quite a testimonial. And obviously, I'm sure you're awesome at both camp and teaching. So kind of to wrap this up, so there are parents who don't want their kids to be camp counselors, they're college kids. What would you say to the parent who's saying, no, I want them to go work for, I don't know what company. What would you say to a parent who comes to you and says, oh, I just really don't think it's a good idea for my kid to be a counselor this summer? How would you respond to that?
I would say life is long and there's a lot of time for those things. When I went to Connecticut College and I had a job lined up for the fall after I graduated in May, and I had actually taken 3 summers off after my freshman, sophomore, and junior years from camp because I was very involved in rowing. And so that had kind of sidelined camp as the only thing that's ever gotten in the way of camp. And my mom I was chatting with my mom, and I just, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm done with rowing. I'm gonna it needs to just, I need it to be over. It'll never be like it was in college. And my mom said, why don't you go back to camp? And I thought, well, there's an idea. Okay. And wouldn't it be fun? Because, the last time I'd been there, I had graduated from high school, but I hadn't been to college yet. And I liked to think that I had matured so much. And so at 21, wow, oh my gosh. And so I went back to camp, and that is what, I graduated from college with a double major in history and art history. And now I'm a teacher. Now, granted, I teach history, but that first summer back, altered my career path. I'm confident. And, but it also, I think, gave me the confidence because when I came back that summer, I was a head counselor. And so, feeling that sense of responsibility and understanding what faith the camp had put in me, to do that job, was exciting. And that's when I started to realize, history's great and everything, but I really enjoy spending time with these kids. I think they're keeping me young. And honestly, I would say to parents who are apprehensive, it's not going to be any more or less competitive, in the fall or the following summer, and that so much is gained from being a camp counselor. There's lots of time and lots of other avenues for pursuing other career paths, but you may not always get this opportunity back. And I think that it can really give kids of all ages, teenagers, college students, a perspective that they might not have gained otherwise in the workforce. Because let's face it, if they're doing an internship, they're probably making a lot of photocopies and getting a lot of coffee. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not going to be doing either of those things if you're a camp counselor. You're going to be networking. You're going to be making a difference in the lives of kids. I mean, what more meaningful work could there be? So I would tell them, life is long. There's a lot of time for that.
Well, that is a great message. I hope people will hear it. So Daniella, before we finish, I just wanted to also recognize that you really are one of the biggest camp promoters that we have in this country. And I first met you or ran into you through your book that you wrote, Hello Mother, Hello Father, Celebrating Summer Camp. And I have it actually in front of me now, and I pulled it out recently because it is just such a great, it is kind of like a love story, or what did you call it? A love letter to him.
A love letter.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's really is fabulous.
The most fun.
Yes. When was it? I was trying to figure out what year that was that you wrote this. How long ago was this published?
I think it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, because I hadn't had my daughter yet. Yes, I think I was proofing galleys when she was an infant.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, I had to tell the story of the evolution of summer camps and in this country. And I was so thrilled to interact with so many people. And I think my favorite part about writing it was that every person I spoke with or emailed with thinks that their camp is the best. And I thought, I thought, isn't that cute? They don't realize that my camp is the best. And so
it is so true. But isn't it? It's so great though too, because it makes me feel so good knowing that so many campers and counselors are getting the same experience at all these different places. The same experiences that you and I see at our camps are being replicated, which is such a great thing. But anyway, it's a really neat book. It's like a coffee table style book. So if any people are interested in just anybody else who loves camp and wants to read the history of camp, it's a really great book. So I'm sure it's on Amazon and everything still, right?
It is. Yep, it's on Amazon.
Okay, great.
By Schiffer.
Well, Daniella, thanks so much for being on today. I'm probably going to have to call you again because you have so many great things, but it was really fun talking to you, and your energy and enthusiasm just like fly through the phone line, and I'm sure they make camp and school really fun.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, if there's anything, there's nothing I love talking about more than camp. So once somebody gets me started, it's like all bets are off. So, so thanks for indulging me.
Sure. We'll do it again sometime. Take care.
Excellent. All right. You too.
Thank you for listening to episode 9 of the podcast. For show notes about my interview with Daniella, go to my website at sunshine-parenting.com and look up episode 9. Today, I'm going to leave you with a quote that Daniella received in a letter written to her counselors at Cape Cod Sea Camps on behalf of a parent. On behalf of the hundreds of parents who are entrusting you with the most important people in our world, thank you for caring for our children this summer. Thank you for your patience, your diligence, your focus and attentiveness, your good judgment, your funny stories, your hugs, and of course, for your sense of humor. And perhaps of equal importance, your ability to keep track of them. I wish all of you an excellent summer.